Chloe, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much. So, Chloe, talk to me. How can people get more joy in their lives?
I love this question. And I think it's a really interesting one because I think the answer that seems to come up most is like do more joyful things, and wait, I don't have time for that. I have a full-time job and a mortgage and 6 kids, whatever. Like we don't have time for joy, surely. But I think actually it comes down to something a bit more sustainable than just doing joyful things. Um, Actually, when we kind of lay the foundations of restoration in our nervous system, when we are in a place of rest and digest, and when we are kind of firing on those cylinders rather than being stressed all the time, and if burnout or close to burnout state, then we're able to sit and be like, wait, isn't being alive really joyful? It becomes like we're opening ourselves up to channeling joy rather than going out and seeking it. We're kind of fixing the foundational level of our life in order to receive it. That's my take on it. Anyway.
To expand on that just a little for me. So, you're talking about the nervous system there. So, maybe you're suggesting joy is a physiological response?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's so fascinating. I was having a conversation with a girlfriend the other day, and she said to me, I don't know what brings me joy anymore. And to me, that's like, ding, ding, ding. That's the signal that she's in a state of nervous system dysregulation. So she's probably in what we would call dorsal vagal, which is part of the sympathetic nervous system, sorry, which means she's kind of disassociating from life. She's been stressed for so long and she's been running on fumes for so long that she's now not able to see the wood for the trees. She can't she doesn't know how to escape that. And so the point of what's really fascinating about the nervous system is whatever state you're in, so whether you're in that kind of disassociated place, that very lethargic, I can't cope with the world, I want to go and live in a cave, whether you're in a really high stress place and you can't cope with everything that's coming in and you're just running quick, or whether you're in rest and digest and connectivity and ease and flow, the world presents itself to you in that kind of way. So she was saying, I don't know what brings me joy anymore, because she was stuck in her nervous system in that dysregulated place. So my point is, and if we can expand on that, it's like, what happens if she then learns how to regulate? First of all, says, yes, I'm stuck in my nervous system. I can understand that. These are the feelings I'm getting in my life and in my head and in my body, right? That's number one, because that's in itself is a huge thing. And then learns the tools to help her come back out of that place, regulate again. Once she's in that regulated place, the world presents itself to you as a fucking brilliant, beautiful place to be. I'm sorry for swearing. I don't know if we haven't discussed that.
You're welcome to. You're welcome to. Just
okay,
be
great.
you. Just be you.
Good. Yeah. So it becomes a more joyful place to be because every single physiological function in your body is working better when you're in a nervous system regulated place. Everything is brighter and shinier. And so suddenly things like playing with your kid or, I don't know, brushing your teeth can feel like a joyful thing because you found space in your life to allow that to be so. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. So is the opposite to joy stress?
That's such a great question. I think, yeah, I think in certain, there's so many different ways we could talk about the opposite to joy, I think. But in this context, and I suppose in the context of the work that I do, and again, stress is so vacuous. What does stress mean? We say stress every day and it becomes kind of meaningless, right? But I think that, yeah, the way that we interpret stress is, and can be the opposite of joy. It's heaviness. It's seeing the world as a dark, horrifying, terrible place to be that overloads you, overstimulates you when you don't want it, that makes you feel fearful and hopeless and pessimistic. And I know I'm just listing a lot of things here, but I think that collectively is the opposite of joy. When you're going through the motions and not really realizing that you fucking hate the motions. Because, like, and I can talk about this for ages, right? The society that we live in has basically taught us to disassociate from our bodies. It's as if we have taken our heads off our bodies and put them on a little machine, and we're just, who gives a crap about anything other than brain function and productivity and getting stuff done, because number one, that's where our worth lies, in being productive and a valuable member of society. But also then we are, and this might be too political, but then we're like consumer machines, right? We just scroll on our Instagram, whatever, and we just buy shit we don't need. And then we're in this kind of cycle of being productive, burning out, buying stuff to make us happy. And it's like, how do we break that cycle? By feeling, right? By learning to put our heads back on our human animalistic body, take it off the robot one, feel all this stuff that's going on, recognize that you're in a place of burnout or close to burnout, or, disassociation or anxiety or stress. And I know that I'm waffling after your question is the opposite of joy, stress, but I feel like this is important. And then feel all that stuff. And then once we can feel it, learn the tools to help us come out of it. And then it's like we soar, right? And then the magic happens, and then we can live a life of intention and meaning from a place of our bodies being in a place of homeostasis again, right? Our bodies are working again, and our brains and everything is reconnected. And I think really it comes down to very simple stuff. Nervous system restoration. Can that be the foundation for everything that we do? And I think that will then have a ripple effect on the rest of our life.
What an amazing answer. That's an amazing answer. That's an amazing answer. So I'm gonna think about that for a second, because from your explanation there, the reason I asked that is because I was curious around, as you were explaining it, I was thinking that I kind of had a picture in my mind that joy is this side, and then stress is this side, and everything's like on a line, some sort of like I don't know, on a spectrum. Let's call it a spectrum. And if joy is maybe the highest state, maybe like to feel joyful, to feel calm, comfortable, to be in the moment, to be in flow, maybe the highest state. And then deeply stressed, angry, frustrated, annoyed. This has happened, that's happened. It's like, that's why I asked the question, because I feel like as you describe them, they're polar opposites. And it's the stress that keeps us stuck. And actually, I'm going to talk about my coach. My coach talks about living below the line and living above the line. And I feel like there's a line, and I'm trying to describe, there's a line of this, the stress is the below the line stuff. And then the above the line stuff is when you can find joy and meaning and purpose in things, like simple things like going for a walk, going to the gym, chatting with someone, talking to you, playing with your kids, like having yoga, whatever. And it feels like that's on the opposite side. So it's so interesting the way you've described it. What do you think about kind of that? I need someone to help me with a diagram.
Yeah, totally. It's interesting when you were talking about that. I was thinking about, I suppose, this kind of like lofty ideal of joy that society has is, buy a yacht and sail the Med and have massive houses, and it's very lavish and money focused and materialistic perhaps. And it's just like, I'm not going to get there. So, or even what is the point of joy? It's unattainable. It's frivolous. It's a bit vacuous, perhaps. And I think my kind of mission is to reframe that, because like you said, it can be very simple things. And I think I love that line analogy maybe just simplifying it in that way can help us see. And I think the point of all of this, and the point of my work, and the reason I do the work I do, is because I'm very aware that life is short, right? I had some stuff happen when I was younger, and people die, all of the stuff that goes on. And you're suddenly aware of, like, fucking hell, life is so short. And, I'm 35 now, and it was 10 minutes ago, and I was 25, I swear to God. And it'll be 10 minutes, and I'll be in my 50s. And I know that that's the same almost for everybody. So when we get to those last few years of our lives, whether we recognize it as our last few years or not is irrelevant. But when we get there, do we not want to look back and think, wow, what a beautiful thing I've just experienced as a conscious, aware human animal on planet Earth? Or do we want to be there and think, fuck, I worked way too hard and didn't spend enough time with my kids or the people I loved, and I was way too stressed all the time? And do you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm waffling again, but I think it's the perspective that drives what I do. We're alive for such a short period of time. Life is way too short to be anything but joyful. And by joyful, I mean, oh my God, I'm alive right now. Simon, it's good to connect with you. Isn't that a joyful thing? Like, what a nice thing that we're experiencing right now, just being able to connect in this way. And hopefully maybe someone listening to this can be the same. Maybe they're on a walk and be like, oh, this is nice. I have the privilege of listening to people in my ears and being on a walk or whatever, right? It's opening ourselves up to everything in your life, the breath that you're breathing, the movement in your toes, the way the light shines off the mirror in your bathroom as joyful. And I think you're right. It's like simplifying it so that you see things as joyful rather than I need a yacht. That's what joy is.
Yeah. Because by the way, you're not waffling. I'm really interested in what you're saying, so you don't need to worry. I really, really enjoy what you're saying. It's really interesting because for a long, long time, I chased money, status, and, what society told me to chase. And I feel that whole journey was just a lie. And the reason I think that is because you've got to do this to be happy. You've got to do this to be happy. You've got to do that to be happy. And then you're going to get a family to be happy. Well, the reality is, as you get older, everything gets a lot harder. That's the reality. Like, life gets a lot harder, more mouths to feed, far more responsibility, far more stress. And I've been thinking a lot about joy recently and the reason why is that this is how you're supposed to be happy. What does that mean? What is happy? Like, you can't be in a constant state of happiness. That doesn't even make sense. Like, so are you happy? It's a deeply profound question, but it's sort of one like you can ask that to anyone, and I think they're always going to go back and go, well, I don't know, don't know, maybe I'm happy, maybe I'm not happy, but I know I'm on a journey. And but then when we break it down to joy, what brings you joy? It's a simpler question. Well, journaling brings me joy, meditation brings me joy, walking brings me joy, and doing this conversation, having this conversation, connecting with you brings me a lot of joy. So where do you feel joy and happiness entwine together?
It's a really interesting question. And I think there's probably many scholarly interpretations of the meanings of joy versus the meanings of happiness, or meaning of happiness. And for me, I suppose I see happiness as a kind of more stable state of being. Joy, I feel like, is more of a bright light experience that you get scattered through the day, whereas happiness is the steady note that continues constantly. And it's interesting what you say about, what we're told. And I think this is compounded by modern life. When you go on Instagram, TikTok, whatever, it's, as a 35-year-old woman, it's very easy to slip into, oh, I need to be skinny and then I'll be happier. I need to be tanned, and I'm a redhead. That's never going to happen. But when I'm tanned, I'll be happy, right? And then I need to earn the money, and then I need to, get the model looking boyfriend, whatever that would be. Then I need to have some sort of status in my life. Then I need to maybe have children. I don't want children, but maybe, I know that plenty of women do. And that's something like, as soon as I get children, I'll be happy. As soon as I get married, I'll be happy. And then it is, and it's that old adage, right? Don't, you don't outsource your happiness. You've got to choose it. It isn't a place to get to. It's not a destination. I think that's the phrase that's going around, right? It's not a destination. It's a state of being or something. And it's true. It is. But number one, I think we have to feel that we're living in a society that's teaching us all of these things. And by the way, when we're scrolling, we're being taught to have a very short attention span. No wonder we struggle to single screen when we watch a movie or pay attention when someone's talking to us or whatever. But also, it's a very stressful thing. Low level, every day, your phone and computers and screens and devices and the way that we live our lives is triggering our stress response. So when our stress response is triggered constantly, it's very difficult for us to shift out of that because we can get stuck in these things, right? And then realize that, oh, I can choose happiness right now. Like, for instance, I love this idea of, I don't know, I think yesterday I was really hungry and I was like, oh, I need a cracker. I need something to eat, right? And so I was like, oh, quickly just make the thing that I want to eat and then I can be happy and I can sit down and eat my cracker, right? Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But what if you go into that moment, though, and say, oh, instead of quickly just get this thing done, whether that's making food or brushing your teeth or prepping something for your kids or whatever, like whatever that task is that you intrinsically want to just rush and get on with so that then you'll be better, happier, more relaxed. Why don't you take that betterness, happiness and relaxation into that task itself? So then you really notice the way that you scrape the butter on the cracker and the sound that makes. And I know this sounds really woo-woo, but you do, and you can like notice the way that you cut the cheese or the way that the knife feels in your hand or the way the toothbrush feels against your teeth. And it can be a sensory experience that you can get pleasure from and that you can use as a way to help you slow down. How happy is making crackers and cheese? How much happiness can you get from making crackers and cheese? And everyone's going to be like, no happiness. What the fuck are you talking about? In the same insert brushing your teeth, whatever. But actually, if you go with that intention, it's a totally different experience. But if you're stressed and running on fumes and you've been taught by your mobile phone to be in a constant state of sympathetic nervous system and you've got no attention span left anymore, your brain's fucked, and you don't have the right amount of money or the right body shape or the right thing to be happy, how are you ever? That's such a lot of mental load. How are you going to go and make crackers and find that little mini joyful experience? You're not going to be able to. So I think, and I feel like I'm answering a deeper question here, but the number one thing, and it's whether you have an alcohol addiction or a nervous system dysregulation, is sitting there and saying, yeah, I think I have a problem. I can feel that I have an issue in my life. I feel this. But again, we've been taught not to feel. So that in itself is hard, but I think that's the number one thing. How do you feel in this moment when you're doing this stuff? How does your body feel right now? Are you overriding stuff in your body? And just one more example of that. I talk about this all the time. Perfect example of us overriding our body's mechanisms is the fact that we can get an app on our phone right now that tells us when to drink water. How long can we go without water? What is it, like 2 days or something? Our bodies are intrinsically wired to tell us to hydrate often, but we've outsourced that because we've completely disassociated, again, robot body for our head. If we learn to refuel, then we can notice we've got a dysregulation, a problem going on, and then we can fix it and find a place where making crackers is a fucking joyful thing to do.
I love that. I love that. I think you're talking a lot about presence and flow state and and finding sort of moments of joy just in our very simple daily lives, which is, if we think about that spectrum, which is as far away from being stressed and hurried and pushed and the business and the kids and this and that and that. It's actually about, I think you're explaining about slowing down, being present, feeling the moment.
Totally, Simon. And what all of that, what is all of that stuff? In terms of our nervous system and the way that our bodies function, that is our parasympathetic nervous system. So that's when and by the way, human beings should be in that state most of the time. Unless a tiger's running at us or a bus is about to hit us, our stress response then kicks in. Magical thing. Our nervous system is a magical thing. Getting stressed occasionally is really good for us. It is a positive thing. Going for a run will stress you out in a nervous system sense. It's not a bad thing necessarily to go for a run, although I hate it, but you know my point. But all of the things that you spoke about happen when we are regulated, when we are living in that parasympathetic nervous system place, when we have regulated our nervous system to a point where we are able to be calm and relaxed. And I'm not saying that, again, I'm not saying stress is bad, and stress will happen, and you'll get angry, and you'll get pissed off, and you'll want to flip a desk over, and you'll get sad, and terrible things happen. And it's not like saying, I guess it's like that toxic positivity, right? Or toxic happiness, whatever, like blinkers on, I'm happy anyway, just put on a face of being happy, and that doesn't exist. It's about being like, oh fuck, I'm really angry right now. Okay, what can I do? What's triggered that? What's my physiological response to that? And that's probably, you're very much in that sympathetic nervous system response. You want to punch a wall, you want to do something, and that's going to actually be really helpful. Perhaps not punching a wall, but just shaking it out, or going for a run, or lifting some heavy weights, or, you know, I don't know, listen to some Rammstein or some metal, I don't know. And then you're able to be like, okay, then I'm going to have to regulate back to center. But my point is that that's the work that we do. Number one, I'm fucking angry. I'm noticing that. This has made me angry. This is where I'm at in my nervous system. Okay, so I know now what to do. I know that I need to fight a tiger, and then I can start to slow down. Then I can do a yoga practice, or I can stare at the clouds for a bit, drink a cup of tea, I can rest. And then I come back to that place where, oh my God, isn't my mug really beautiful? Like, and it sounds so woo-woo, and I know exactly how it sounds. You know, I came into the yoga world thinking, no, you know, I remember practicing with teachers with names like Rainbow and Harmony, and I'm like, this isn't my vibe. You know, Namaste Om Shanti isn't my vibe. And I can also say that as well as saying I honor the roots of the yoga practice, you know. But I think aside from being woo, this isn't woo. This is like how your body fundamentally works. And you're right. Like, it is that kind of everyday little things. And again, going back to that woman I spoke to, I don't know what brings me joy anymore. When you're in this regulated place, she will know. She will know that listening to Britney Spears at full volume and dancing around her living room brings her enormous amounts of joy. But she doesn't know that right now because she's stuck in that stress response.
So let's talk about those two stress responses. So you're talking about, I'm going to butcher this, I'm not going to even attempt it, as I know I'm going to mess it up. What are the two different, so are there two different systems? Go on, explain that to me, because I'm going to butcher it.
Yeah, so it's basically polyvagal theory, right? So our nervous system is made up of a stress response and calm regulation. So that regulated place is our parasympathetic nervous system. So you can imagine when you're feeling calm and connected, and you're able to have conversations with people, and your shoulders are relaxed, and you're quite slow, and you're in flow state. That's parasympathetic. And magical things happen in that place. Your circulation is going to be better. Your digestion works better. You're able to problem solve better. Your brain cognition is better. Everything is better. Every process in your body works better when you're in that parasympathetic place. But the sympathetic side of the nervous system actually has two branches. So we've got sympathetic, which is your classic fight or flight. Very stressful stuff comes at you again. So that could be like the bus coming at you, you've got to jump out the way, or someone's chasing you, or something stressful is happening. Your TV's fallen off the wall. Oh my God, that's stressful and loud. And holy shit, I've got to do something about that. And you'll notice that your heart rate increases, your breathing rate increases and becomes more shallow. And it's a very kind of staying alive mechanism in our bodies, which is very important. We have to stay alert to things that happen in our environment and in our lives. So that's the sympathetic. And then we have what we call dorsal vagal, which can happen when we have had a prolonged experience of a lot of that stress. This is when we kind of go through shutdown and we disassociate and things become overwhelming and we want to just avoid and crawl into a corner and disappear. And this can often look as kind of depression. Look, I'm not a mental health doctor, but I don't really want to talk about those kind of places. But if we think of that as a depression kind of place of withdrawing from society and from your stuff, we don't want anything to do with it. We can't, like, that girlfriend I was talking to, I don't know what brings me joy anymore. That she's probably in that place, right? She's been stressed for so long, she can't deal with things anymore. And so what happens is when we get stuck in these places, like I mentioned earlier, the world presents itself to us in those kind of ways. So if you're in that kind of withdrawing state, the world seems very over the top and too much and too scary. And it's just another thing on my plate and another thing on my plate. I can't, so I'm going to withdraw completely. When you're in that sympathetic place, so like everything is stressful, you get stuck in that place, everything presents itself to you as very stressful. So noises from vehicles outside, everything is stressful. Like your kids want feeding, oh my God, I can't cope with this, and you're running on fumes, you're running quickly, and everything is just, oh my God, okay, another thing, I can't get a minute to myself. That is when you're stuck in that place. It presents itself to you. And this is why I'm saying being able to feel where you are. Where are you in your nervous system right now? I think I might be stuck in sympathetic. Okay, what do I need to do? And then we go through the steps to shift. I think I might be stuck in that withdrawal place, that dorsal vagal place. Okay, I need to shift out of that place. Do you see what I mean? Like feeling where you are is the number one thing. No one's going to be able to tell you that. Instagram's not going to be able to tell you that. You have to realign your head back on your body and start to feel again and allow things to feel shitty and crappy without feeling like you're not good enough. And without feeling like you're not man enough by feeling emotions or feeling upset. And then being able to work back. So yeah, it's basically polyvagal theory. There's two branches. We've got parasympathetic, which is rest and digest, and then sympathetic, which is kind of broken into two branches.
I think the awareness of what you just shared there is really important, because I think once you start becoming aware of these different systems that are operating within your body, then it allows you to maybe be aware, to take control, or to lean into it and go, oh, okay, oh, hang on, I've triggered here. That's presenting a particular type of stress response. That's why I'm feeling the way I do. But it's just because of a situation or something that's happened, something that I've interpreted. So that means there must be ways, strategies, things you can do to then go back to a more joyful place.
Yeah, absolutely.
So therefore, it's about being aware and then taking action.
Yeah, definitely. It's so funny talking about that awareness piece. I feel like what you were saying there, I'm like, yeah, definitely. It's about feeling, I've been triggered by this thing. It's like, that's how our bodies were. But we've never been taught that. It's like this. It's like getting a car and not realizing and not having anyone teach you that you need to put petrol in it to make it work or charge it up or whatever. You know, why aren't we taught this stuff? Why aren't, I mean, and, you know, going back hundreds of years, people didn't know, but I just find it amazing that today we're kind of going through life hoping for the best almost. And we don't know this stuff and we're not teaching each other this stuff and we're not learning it. But so, yeah, it's, feel like this whole thing is a relearning how to work with your body. And yes, there are tools. So for instance, if you're stuck, like that girlfriend, I don't know what brings me joy anymore. You're in that state of withdrawal and you want to escape and go live in a cave because you can't cope. So if we're in that kind of dorsal vagal branch of the sympathetic nervous system, the way that you move out of it isn't through go and do a yoga nidra, like a slow down class or a meditation, or go have a nice gentle spa day. You're already quite gentle in what you're, I suppose, presenting, because you don't have any energy for anything else. What do you need to do then? You need to reactivate. So it's almost like a ladder. So if you're at that bottom place of being withdrawn and what I'd call depressed, although again, let's not talk about states of mind here, but yeah, you're in that kind of withdrawal place. You need to reactivate by coming back into your sympathetic nervous system, coming back into that stress response, fight or flight. And you can do that by an ice bath. That's, I know, a super popular thing at the moment, going for a run, jumping in the sea, dancing, shaking, cold shower, something that gets you out of that lethargy. And then once you're in that place, you've had an ice bath and you're like, oh shit, I'm alive and everything is tingling and your heart rate's fast and your breathing's fast and shallow, then we can start to slow down. But if you're in that kind of fast, you know, and a lot of people are in that kind of fast-paced, sympathetic response a lot of the time. So that's you if your breathing is fast and shallow and your heart rate is fast and you struggle to slow down. If you struggle to slow down, don't have an ice bath, because you've already triggered by, you know, you've already been triggered by everything in your life, your phone, multitasking, eating too quickly, trying to do 60,000 things at once, fitting 100 hours into your week. Like, you already have been taxing your system with too much. So if you go and add an ice bath, or, you know, try and lift the heaviest weights possible, or like add more kind of physiological strain onto your body, you know, it's fine, but you have to be able to then down-regulate. You have to then know, okay, like after my ice bath, I need to do a yoga nidra, which is where we just lie and listen to somebody guide us through our bodies, through our sensations, and we rest, right? Or nap, or we read a book, or we soften into something really relaxing. So you see, like, at the bottom, we have that lethargic state, that dorsal vagal. You have to reactivate first before you can get back to parasympathetic. If you're already in that activated place, you don't need to add more stress to the mix. You need to slow down. So for the most part, I would say, yeah, learn how to slow down, do it regularly, do it often, take rest. You don't need to do a certain amount of work to afford rest, to be allowed to rest, to deserve rest. You need to rest as a physiological part of being a human being.
So do we need to build that rest in somehow into our daily routine? You know, I think a lot about sleep and getting good quality sleep. Funny for me to say, I had a baby 6 weeks ago.
Wow. So you're really in a particular state of your nervous system right now.
Gosh, well, I'll explain my week, because I think this might be very useful for someone. Is that last night was the first time I've had a full night's sleep in 6 weeks. And at the beginning of the week, I explained to my wife, I said, like, I'm falling to pieces. And I'm like half the man I am. I can't think, can't communicate properly at work. I can't. All of those conversations. She's like, well, just had a baby. We're not sleeping properly. You're not sleeping and you're back to work. it was really apparent. It was just, well, the answer to that is just you need some deep rest. You need to rest. You need to sleep. So last night was the first night we're able to have a proper sleep, 8 hours, 9 hours sleep or whatever. And today I feel like a completely different human being. Not all the way back, but at least 70% of the man that I was. So I think a lot about rest and how we can get the right rest, because I think a lot of us are pushing the job, the family, everything. We're pushing so hard, but actually that's what I believe that really takes us closer and closer and closer to burnout. And then everything's a problem. Everything's a
Yeah,
problem.
and totally. And you say the B word, right? The burnout. And I think that is what happens when we are. So effectively, if we go back to that lethargy place, so the bottom of that sympathetic nervous system response when you're withdrawing, that's burnout. And that can look different for everybody. For me, I've been through it so many times, and this is why I work on it, because we shouldn't have to be living like this. I was in that place so often, I would have cycles of going back into that place and back into that place, of being withdrawn and thinking, I'm going to quit my business. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to work anymore. I want to just, live in a closet at my mum's house. I can't cope. And that's because you're piling on top all the time, like you just said, lack of sleep, pushing through, doing the business, doing the family stuff, like getting the bigger house, doing the stuff that Instagram tells you should do to be a 30, 40, 50-year-old someone, human being, 20-year-old human being on this planet. These are the things, these are the metrics you need to measure yourself by to determine your worth. So there you go. You measure yourself by those metrics. You fail because they're impossible. And so you try harder and you're on a treadmill and suddenly you're burnt out because your nervous system physiologically can't handle that amount of stress. If you're being chased by tigers every hour of the day, you're going to be exhausted. And this isn't chased by tigers, this is low level. But yeah, like this is what happens when we push ourselves too far. We don't have time in our days, and we don't make time in our days for rest and time out.
So
Congratulations on your sleep, by the way.
thank you. Yeah, I feel like I've actually I've won something this year. It's the best thing that's happened in gosh, yeah. I mean, I needed that sleep so bad. Yeah, it is crazy. So yeah, so I think rest is clearly a critical thing to anyone and their lifetime. You were just touching then on. I forgot my train of thought. How funny. That's what I mean. Is I'm not as sharp as I normally am. I can't think quite as quickly as I was. You were talking about burnout, and I was thinking about death by a thousand cuts, and that's what I feel like burnout is in some respects. It's like a thousand thing that has happened. They're all minor. They're all 1% or 2%. Maybe some things is like a big bang, which is your boss has a problem with you, or there's a problem at home, and then there's that, and then you drink a bit more, or you eat some of this food, and then you don't sleep as well, and then, but like over an extended period of time, it's like this, yeah, the death of a thousand cuts, which I think then turns into burnout, frustration, anger, all of those things keeping us in a very low level.
Totally.
So I feel like what you're talking about is finding ways of building in moments of joy, finding things that you can enjoy, and then also just ensuring that you're having the right amount of rest from all the things. I mean, how can we do this in this busy modern world that we live in?
Yeah, it's not easy, but it can be. And I think it's about restructuring your priorities. Number one, I mean, do you really want to be spending 4 hours of your day on Instagram? I think the statistic I read the other day was it's Americans, but look, we're kind of the same, right? We reach for our phone 110 times a day. And I think that was like it's every 10 minutes. 4 hours, 5 hours is the kind of average people spend on their phones every day. And obviously, TikTok, Instagram, these social platforms are designed to keep us on there as long as possible. Now, again, talking to another girlfriend the other day, and it was like she was scrolling and scrolling, and she was like, what am I doing? I didn't ask for this video of a monkey like in my life today, but I'm here just allowing it to be. What am I doing? And we need to have those moments more often. So I would say, like, number one, it's kind of reframing what you want in your life. Do you want to be on Instagram all the time? Do you want to be scrolling social media? Do you want to have more control over it? And I think there's lots of different ways that you can take control over it. I think there's a tech life balance we need to kind of implement a little bit here. And allowing ourselves to be bored. I travel a lot in London, and it's amazing when you see someone waiting for a train or a tube who's not on their phone. That's a rarity, right? And but what if we allowed those situations to be times of boredom for us? To be times when we're just waiting and we're not entertaining ourselves, we're not distracting ourselves, we're just allowing the moment to be. And science tells us there's a load of heavy benefits with boredom, right? So I think it's maybe that is putting parameters over the time that you spend on devices. And then I think it's about really just tiny little moments of rest. It's interesting. So I've got an Aura ring, and Apple Watches do similar things, and you can get Fitbits and trackers and whatever. And so it tells me what activities bring me the most stress and what activities help me slow down. And so rather than kind of putting everything into this ring or kind of living by the ring, I'm sure there's a lot of the rings analogy in there, which I would love, but yeah, anyway, I think it's about relearning, using a tracker like this to relearn the things that help you slow down. And it's not necessarily go and do a meditation or go and have a nap or go and do yoga nidra. It's like, right now I'm reading Frankenstein, and I just make myself tea and I curl up and I read Frankenstein, and I know that that's going to help me massively slow down my heart rate, massively slow down all these stress responses in my body just by sitting and reading for 10, 20 minutes. I play the piano, I play the violin terribly, I paint terribly, but those things also allow me to slow down. And it's like, I work for myself, I work from home, I don't have someone saying you need to be in the office 9 to 5. So I know that it's not necessarily as easy when you have those kind of restrictions on your time. But that's when we have to be more structured in the way that we use our phones, the way that we spend the time we're waiting for a train, or the time we spend commuting, or the time that we spend on our lunch break. Are you eating and working? Or should you just be eating? Can you not multitask? When you brush your teeth in the morning, can you sit and brush your teeth and just allow it to be a little bit boring? Can you sit and wait for your kettle to boil and just take a few breaths? Notice your breathing. Just notice how you're feeling. And by putting all of these things, little tiny things into your day, it starts to build up. You start to build what we call interoception, right? The ability to feel that we've lost, that I keep talking about. You build that slowly back up. And if you do particular types of meditation and yoga nidra and things, your ability to feel starts to really increase, like we're building a muscle. And then over time, it gets easier. And you don't reach for your phone. You build into your kind of wiring a deeper ability to pay attention, to be bored, to be patient, to be softer. So I think it's not necessarily about, okay, I have to have a nap every day at 2 p.m, or you have to do non-sleep deep rest practices, or you have to do what Tim Ferriss says, or Andrew Huberman says, or any of these big experts in the wellness space says. You have to do the things that you kind of, instead of outsourcing it, go internally and notice the things that help you calm down, slow down, and stop multitasking is a big thing, I would say. Stop multitasking and quit social media.
You've mentioned a word a few times, which we're going to talk about now, which I'd love you to expand on. The word is feelings. And why is it so hard for us to feel our feelings?
Wow, that's what a question. And I feel like you're a bloke coming at this, and it's even harder because it's a very feminine thing to feel your feelings and to cry or to be whatever. It's so funny. My boyfriend's the same. He's a very Yorkshire man. We don't feel our feelings because we have to crack on. The reason it's so hard, or one of the reasons it's so hard, is because we've been taught that they don't really matter and they aren't productive. So I think if we think about the way that society is geared up right now, it's about building sustainable businesses or working hard and climbing the career ladder or having 2.5 children and the nice 5-bed house or, you know, having a certain salary or the nice car or the holidays or the yacht in the Med, whatever, you know, none of those things have room for feelings because earning money, being the boss, whatever, even being a mother or a parent, I imagine it's your baby, your child is the most important thing. Your feelings almost don't matter here because you've got to hustle and crack on and make sure that this kid is healthy, well, has all the layers of protection that you could possibly give it so that it has the best start in life. We've been taught that it doesn't matter. So that's why it's so bloody hard. But it does matter. And again, it's so trite. Everyone says it. You can't pour from an empty cup. You know, you've got to put your own oxygen mask on before anybody else's. And they're great little phrases, right? But it's so fucking true. If I am in a, or like the stakes are high with you, Simon. You've got a newborn. If you are like, okay, I'm going to work all hours this week. I'm going to go for a run every day, a 10K every day. I'm going to push myself. I'm going to do like massive fasts every day. I'm going to fast for 20 hours a day. I'm going to do an ice bath every day. You're just going to push yourself because you think that's what you've been taught to do. That's what you should be doing. Go, go, go. Don't mess about. Are you then in a place where you can come home and take care of your wife and kid? Probably not. You're not in the best of. And I know it's a silly example, but it's true. And I think so many people do that, maybe to a lesser extent. We just think if we just crack on, it doesn't matter. And again, you know, I know a lot of women who feel the same as me. You know, we people please, and men too. It's not gender specific, but there's so much people pleasing going on, right? Because we're taught that, oh, if we make X person happy, if we don't frustrate them, then we're worthy of having around. We're worthy of being a human being worth talking to, right? So if we just keep everybody happy. But it burns us out. We get into a place where we're like, I don't know what brings me joy anymore. And I keep bringing back that example because I find that the saddest thing. And I want to help her. I want to get her back to feeling bright and shiny like a donut with sprinkles on it again, because that's what life is about. She's going to die eventually. Come on, like we don't have time for all of this. So yeah, like I forget your original question here, but I think it's like the focus has to be on you first. No one's going to regulate your nervous system for you. No one's going to keep your energy levels stable for you. No one's going to find out that you really, really love to listen to Bon Iver and build a duvet tent in your spare room to help you downregulate. No one's going to help you discover that but you. And so the responsibility has to come back to ourselves. We have to start doing this stuff if we want good relationships, if we want to be good parents, if we want to be good business owners or good employees, or like excel at our work or our hobbies, or like, you know, be present and alive and successful, using air quotes. If we want to be those things, it has to start with ourselves. But yeah, we've been taught that it's the opposite. And so I think, you know, like the whole kind of robot body thing, take our heads off, put it on a robot body, just crack on. Easier. Life is easier when you do that. I think it's about relearning to bring our heads back onto our human bodies, feel, allow that to be shitty and hard and complicated, and allow yourself to have two different feelings at the same time, and it to be sticky and difficult and, yeah, challenging. allow yourself to feel less than for being an emotional human being, and you'll start to come out the other side. I mean, even just talking about grief for a second, just grief or almost any emotion, if you boil it down, you can find that there's love underneath it. My dad, for instance, he had a stroke on Boxing Day and he was in hospital for 3 weeks. He's doing okay now, but he's lost the ability of speech. When I talk about it, I get so sad because obviously it's a really sad thing to happen. But what an absolute privilege that is to have a dad who I love that much that it upsets me. Do you know what I mean? Even when there's terrible things happen in our lives, we can be like, wow, there's kind of magic in that because it comes from a place of goodness. You know what I mean? I've gone off topic with that, but yeah, we've been taught to not feel.
No, I think you've not gone off topic. You've gone into thinking about as you were explaining that, there was a statement running through my mind, which was all the answers are within. And I think about that a lot because all the extrinsic things that maybe we've chased throughout our lives. I had a person on the podcast recently called Nick, and he was talking about, everything we're chasing is really because of a feeling, what we want, the feeling of success, the feeling of making money, the feeling of having a house, the feeling of this, or the experience. And he just redefined that as it's the experience of having the thing. He said that all of it really comes back to a feeling. And I feel like there's a wider consciousness going on at the moment, which is trying to bring us back to I'm going to call them basics. They're not basics because it's tough, but it's foundational things of just feeling. This is hard. Yeah, that's okay. This is difficult. That's okay too. Right? This is uncomfortable. That's okay too. And I think the suppression, because I know so many guys in my situation or their family guys or whatever, and they suppress with alcohol, and I've certainly done that in the past, or getting high or whatever it is, whatever the thing is, or sugar, takeaways, what are the, pornography, all of those things, right? We suppress our feelings we don't want to feel. And actually, I'm firsthand to say, if you start to detach from all of those things and just sit and feel, it's incredible the direction that your life can start going on, because you'll start to live a far more authentic version of you. And that's what I feel like you're communicating today, is that it's almost like the deepest form of self-care is just to sit and feel and let your inner intrinsic self guide you to whatever your future needs to look like. I feel like it's the deepest form of self-care. And I think that's what you're describing.
Yeah, I love that. I really love that. And I think you're right. I think there's been so much in our lives that then puts guilt on you for feeling sad. I know that I've been there in the past, and I have plenty of friends who feel the same. I feel guilty because I feel tired or I feel exhausted. I came back, I visited my dad last week, and it's a really challenging thing to just be with my dad in this new normal. He no longer can speak, right? So I come home and my instinct is to be like, what's wrong with you? You haven't done anything. You've just been sitting around with your folks and your family, and that's nice. And why are you so tired? And I think we add that level of guilt on. But you're right. I think allow it. Sit and allow. Allow yourself to feel these things. And it's a human privilege. I sometimes use this at the end of yoga classes or in a meditation. The idea that there are souls in space queuing, hundreds, thousands of them queuing to have a human experience, the good stuff and the bad stuff, because what a privilege that is. And they're queuing to have this experience, and we made it to the top of the queue, and here we are having this human experience. And yet we push away everything that's not comfortable. But I think you're right. Let's not outsource it. Don't just, and I think this is the key, right? You can't self-care your way out of a fundamental misalignment in your life or in your nervous system. And I think what it really comes down to is exactly what you said, Simon, like feel more and act accordingly.
I'm first, I just want to acknowledge and just say I'm really sorry about your dad. That must be really tough.
Thanks, Simon. It's hard, but there's goodness in it too, you know? It's all good.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective to kind of to try and take positive from obviously a really challenging or difficult situation and kind of have love for him whilst you're having grief because a part of your dad is maybe is lost or taken away. It must be tough. Must be really tough to think about it that way.
Yeah, and I'm a classic overthinker, right? Because I'm here like I want to plan the future, and it's almost as if, and I think we do this in any terrible situation, is we think, right, okay, if I plan for the worst case scenario, I'll have less chance of having a meltdown if worst case scenario actually happens. But actually what that's doing is taking away from the present and giving me a meltdown in the present, you know, and so yeah, it's challenging, but I think it's an opportunity to come back to my fundamentals and what I teach and what I put into the world. And I think that, yeah, we can see all of these things, these terrible things, losing a job or having illness in the family or whatever. And some of them are way easier to find the gifts in than others. But can we find the gift in that? And the gift in my dad having this terrible situation is like, holy shit, I need to be at my dad's more often. You know, he lives 5 hours away, so it's not easy. But me and my brother went down, and it was the first time in 20 years that our entire kind of extended family was together. And what a joy that is. And my dad has suddenly become so much more emotional and grateful for his life, right? He's alive. And I think that life is never going to be straightforward and easy, and you might want it to be, and you might press against it and struggle against it and try your hardest. But it's a very stoic philosophy, isn't it? If you can just allow it to be what it is and, you know, add your feelings into that and allow your feelings to be what they are. And we end up riding the wave rather than being completely battered by it.
Love that last statement. To ride the wave instead of being completely battered by it.
I'm a surfer, I can't help it.
That's a great analogy for life, though, isn't it? It's learning to be able to ride the wave instead of just life coming to batter you, because it's going to happen, right? Life is going to batter you at some stage, whether it's, you know, a really sad situation, you know, a family illness with your dad, or just your own illness, or money's a
With your
problem,
baby,
or,
right?
oh gosh, God, yeah, little
I mean,
Luca,
what a
there could be.
joy. What a great example. Absolute joy, right? Having a baby is one of the most joyful things you can do. But at the same time, it's hard as fuck. Like being a parent is just, I mean, I don't know if this is your first, but I can imagine having your first baby is like nothing else you've ever experienced. And so suddenly you've got this dichotomy of, oh my God, I've made a baby. Isn't that amazing? It isn't the most perfect thing in the whole world. And also, oh my God, my life is a complete 180 different to what it was before, and this is hard as hell.
Yeah, so Lucas, our second, so we've got little Logan who's 4, and you know, gosh, reflecting on parenting, I sent out a post on LinkedIn earlier, just talking about why is raising a family so hard. And it's a good opportunity for me to write down my thoughts and feelings about it, and I kind of think the conclusion I came to was that it's hard because it really matters. Like you're growing and taking responsibility for 2 little souls, 2 little lives, and everything that comes with that, and every level of challenging, and any part of you that isn't healed or is still a bit broken gets fully exposed. So there's a huge level of mental resilience. There's physical resilience as well, because you're not sleeping as well. You're tired. You know, my 4-year-old's got unbelievable levels of energy. So therefore you're trying to keep up with them at the same time. It's unbelievable. The dichotomy of family, a wonderful thing to love and be part of your life, but also, my God, it will give you the most hardest trying times at the same time. It's like, there's no journey at all like it. It's incredible and hard as fuck at the same time.
So I mean, no pressure, Simon, eh? But
Yeah.
I think there's some wonderfulness in allowing yourself to be a flawed human being, whether you're a parent or partner, like running your business as an employee. It doesn't matter. Like whatever kind of situation you find yourself in, what's the worst case scenario? Like lean into that a bit. And I think often it's, well, what if I'm not good enough as a parent? What if I'm not good enough as a business owner? What if my business isn't good enough? What if it's not good enough? What if you're not good enough as a parent? What is enough anyway? And just allowing yourself to be not good enough, or allowing yourself to kind of go towards that which you find so pressuring and so challenging, and allowing yourself to be imperfect. And I think you have no idea the magic that lies in your imperfections when you allow them to be there, and allow yourself to, like everything we've said, allow yourself to feel all of it. I think it's more magic than we give it credit for.
I agree. I couldn't agree with you more. I think the more you go on the journey, the more you feel. And this is why I think it's important for me as a man to also hopefully encourage other men to kind of go on a journey to feel. Because what I wrote about in my book was feeling low and depressed for a really long, like an extended period of time, which people on the outside would have never known. They would have never known. They just thought I was happy-go-lucky, successful with the wife and the house and the job and all those sorts of things. On the outside, that's how things look. On the inside, actually feeling low, depressed, frustrated, angry a lot of the time, but learning how to suppress all of those things. And I feel like I want more men and small people in general just to be able to sit with their feelings and understand what all these things are. Some of it's unhealed trauma, or it's things just your boss has pissed you off, or it's basic. Sometimes it's really deep, sometimes it's really basic, sometimes it's just what happened yesterday. But like for me, I have a meditation practice in the morning, which now it's pretty much my go-to, which I look forward to every day. I can't wait. Like when I wake up, first thing I want to do is get downstairs so I can sit with myself for 10 minutes and meditate. And it's the best part of my day most of the time.
I love that.
Sat in a darkened room on my own. It's cold, so I've got my coat on. Must look like a right fool, but it doesn't matter. And it's at those moments you realise you are enough. You're right. It's great to be you. It's when I understood meditation, I say understood. It took years, right, to meditate, and that might not be the answer for everyone. Right, it might be journaling, or it might be training, or it might be whatever your thing is. You just have to test and try these things. But really becoming comfortable with your feelings. Who am I? What am I trying to be? Well, what am I here for? Really kind of getting to grips with that. You can, done repeatedly, 10 minutes on your own each day. It can absolutely change your life, change mine. And I feel like it allows you to show up to become a far more authentic version of yourself. Listen, we're all broken and fucked in some way. So I have to be trite. But we're all a bit
No,
broken. We're all a bit
absolutely.
in some way, whatever. And it's like, okay, cool. Without my wife, I would be a terrible, useless parent. I'd have all the love in the world, but practically I wouldn't have a clue what I was doing. But, she
Totally.
gives me all the practical skills of actually how to change the nappy and all that sort of stuff. But like, it's okay. Like we keep on, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to not be quite the parent that you're hoping to be. But if you come with it with being authentic and having love for the thing that you do in your job, in your relationships, from a true authentic version of yourself, I think people feel that and understand it. So it's okay then to make whatever mistakes it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of the time we actually take a lot of effort and time to try and cover up the mistakes and make ourselves look perfect.
Mm.
And that can come off in such a lot of alienating ways for people. And also, just a note, I've been going to therapy for 3 years nearly, and it's one of the most profound things I've ever done, because, and it doesn't matter whether you do it in therapy or, meditation or, whatever kind of way, but allowing yourself to know that you're a flawed human being and you have all of these weird coping mechanisms that are actually really helpful when you notice them, when you're aware of them. And that it's okay to show up as that flawed human being and to communicate with people and to be empathetic to other people's flaws and traumas. And you know what I mean? It just makes life, I think you'll agree, right, more soulful and fulfilling and rich.
I think we should just briefly chat about therapy. I'd love to know your experience. I actually feel like it's it's a really important thing for a lot of people to do. So, and people might look at it for many, many different reasons. I've had a few different people that I've gone to for therapy in different times of my life. But I think the word therapy sometimes has a negative connotation. And actually, I found that I really look forward to the sessions because I was sitting down with a trained expert and we were trying to unravel my mind and my feelings. And I really look forward to the sessions. And because there's so many different types of therapy, I feel like there's always an opportunity for growth and having a really safe place to share. I feel like this, I'm frustrated about that, I'm angry about that. And they ask you to have that level of self-inquiry, like, well, what does that mean? Where do you think that came from? Is it, and you might talk about your childhood or you talk about these things and actually you find quite often you're holding on to things that have happened decades ago when you really unravel it and then be able to then be empowered to kind of go, I can let that go now, or I can move on. I can release myself from it so I can just be happier, or I can find more joy and not live in that joyless situation, which you talk about with your friend. What's your, if you don't mind me asking, what's your experience of therapy being?
Yeah, amazing. It's been the best thing I've ever paid for. I actually left quite a toxic relationship at the end of 2021 and immediately just jumped into therapy. And I think that made me realize how toxic that relationship was, how good it was that I'd left it. And it's so interesting, like, the journey I went on, because basically my therapist, she's a relationship therapist. I go to her with everything that is coming up in my life, and she's so wonderful. And she guided me through the healing of that and the understanding that I'm things from my childhood prompt the way that I show up in relationships today. And it's been so illuminating to understand my go-to trauma response kind of self-protection measures, and they're not healthy. And so it took me a couple of years to understand that, and I dated some terrible people. But that was a wonderful testing ground for me and my therapist to be like, oh, this is what's happening. Isn't that fascinating? And so now I'm in a relationship where all of that is really evident and the communication has been next level and it's so healing. And I wouldn't be in that state without my therapist. And I think that, we've been talking a lot about feeling, right? Learning to feel. And I talk about it in an interoception kind of way, like learning to feel, when am I thirsty? When am I hungry? Am I feeling angry? Am I upset? Am I calm? Those things are really important. But obviously we have an emotional side to this kind of feeling as well. And, especially people who've been taught that your emotions don't matter or you shouldn't be feeling, it's not very becoming of you to feel things. I think having a therapist is so important because it teaches us, that's what a therapist is there for, to teach you to feel again and to teach you that feelings are okay. And actually, isn't that interesting? Because that feeling is related to your dad who was a dick when you were a kid or whatever. Like, it's so illuminating. It's like living your life with someone holding your hand, helping you walk through it in the most calm and kind of understanding way possible. There's so much clarity when you have a therapist, and you're right, there's so much taboo around it. You have to be broken, you have to be depressed, you have to be, some sort of unhinged to go to a therapist. It's a sign of weakness, but it's actually a huge, huge strength and a boon to anybody. And as well, I would also touch on, people say to me, oh, I don't like yoga, it's boring. You've not been to the right yoga class. People who say to me, I don't like therapy, it doesn't work for me. You've not been to the right therapist. And there are millions of therapists, and all of them have different ways and techniques and approaches. And just try different ones until something fits. And it's not an easy process. I have a girlfriend right now going through some really horrible stuff. And she's been seeing my therapist, and it's hard. The first few sessions, when you're going through stuff, it's like, here's my open leg wound. It's weeping and horrible. Let's poke at it a little bit. And that's makes it feel even worse. But over time, your leg gets stronger than it was before.
Yeah. I think there's what you're talking about there is strength, right? You've got to go with a willingness to be open, and then what you're going to get from it as an outcome in time is far more strength and resilience, understanding of yourself, understanding of the world. And I just feel like that level of just the first understanding is really deep and profound. That's the beginning of your relationship with your actual self, your real self, your true self, your future self.
Right. And what a better thing to do in life than understand yourself in that way. I think it's a magical thing.
Yeah, it is. I'm always a big advocate for encouraging people to go on the journey. It's interesting because I spend a lot of my time, or most of my time, in the corporate world. There are a lot of senior business leaders that I see, very successful people, that I think, great if you went to therapy.
I think the same too. Like everyone I meet.
Oh, listen, I really love talking to you today. Thank you so much for your time. If someone wants to reach out and connect with you, learn more about your coaching and have your support, guidance, or have a chat, what's the best way of getting in contact?
Yeah, find me at chloemarkham.co.uk. That is my website. So chloemarkham.co.uk. That is the hub for my little business ecosystem. But I also, my favorite thing is Substack at the moment. I started it 6 months ago, and it's been such a beautiful place for amazing writings and connections and stuff. So yeah, I am Chloe Markham at, chloemarkham.substack.com.
Amazing. Amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure in talking to you.
Thank you, Simon. It's been amazing.